Imagine a ship's bridge on a calm sea. The captain gets a steady stream of reports. All systems normal, no alarms. But below deck, water seeps through a cracked hull that no one's checked. That's the noise trap. Enterprises run on a rhythm of status updates, dashboards, and cross-team syncs. They look coordinated, they feel in control, but that control's a mirage built on fragmented signals. Every morning, managers scan emails, Slack threads, and project trackers. They nod at green status dots and tidy burn-down charts. But these tools don't talk to each other. A critical dependency shifts in one system, and the update sits buried in a spreadsheet nobody opens. The sales team logs a customer escalation in a CRM. The ops team never sees it. Information fragments across a dozen platforms, and the gaps get filled with assumption. The surface stays placid, the reality churns. Beneath the regular reporting cadence, execution risks multiply. A supplier delay that's mentioned in a footnote becomes a production halt 3 weeks later. The key engineer's burnout doesn't show up in a velocity metric. The organization mistakes the absence of red flags for the presence of resilience. It's a dangerous substitution. You can't fix what you don't see, and you can't see what gets filtered out by the very tools meant to surface it. The noise trap isn't about too much information. It's about information that's disconnected, delayed, and stripped of context. The regular reports give a false sense of control because they're designed to summarize, not to reveal. They smooth over the friction, the handoffs, the silent assumptions. And in that smoothing, they hide the execution risks that eventually blow up. The calm surface is the problem, not the proof. Every organization is drowning in data. The PMO's war chest alone could fill a dozen backup drives. Project schedules, resource allocations, risk registers, timesheets, all meticulously maintained. They've got dashboards with glowing status icons and color-coded Gantt charts that scroll into next Tuesday. But peel back the layers, and you'll find a library of facts that never congeal into a warning. Data points without context. That's the whole problem. Context is the missing link. Without it, a missed deadline is just a red bar, not a clue that 3 upstream tasks all depended on one overloaded architect. The project spreadsheet knew about the architect. His name sat in a resource column, but nobody connected the dot to the sales team's urgent feature request logged in a separate system. A resource overall location, a supplier delay, a scope shift, each sat in a different tab, alone. No single place existed where all those inputs converged into a clear signal. The signal was there, screaming in the seams of those disconnected cells. It just never got stitched together. When decisions rely on summary charts instead of real-time wiring, they're based on yesterday's picture. By the time a risk becomes visible in the PMO review meeting, it's already a fire. The spreadsheet didn't lie, it just didn't connect. That's the data-rich, insight-poor trap. You've got all the pieces, but you can't hear the music they're supposed to make. Until you can parse the patterns hiding in plain sight, every dashboard is just a rearview mirror. 3 months before launch, the Nova platform was on track. Engineering had locked the feature set. The Gantt chart showed a perfect cascade of dependencies, all green. The final piece was a payment processing module, outsourced to a third-party vendor that had never missed a deadline. Beth, the procurement lead, received an email about a failed integration test at the vendor's facility. It was a small hiccup, they said. She flagged it in their shared spreadsheet and moved on. That spreadsheet didn't talk to the project management tool. It didn't feed into the risk register. So the signal vanished. 2 weeks later, another test failure. This time it was a performance bottleneck. The vendor's engineering team scrambled, but the project manager, David, never heard about it. His dashboard still glowed green. The testing team kept refining their scripts, unaware they'd soon face a module that couldn't handle transaction spikes. No one connected these dots because each dot lived in a different system: procurement's tracker, the vendor's ticket log, the PMO's resource plan. The pattern was there, a series of escalating failures. But without a unified lens, it was just noise. Then, 6 weeks before launch, the vendor announced a 2-month delay. The payment module wasn't just buggy, it was architecturally flawed. Nova's launch date imploded. The marketing campaign, already in flight, had to be pulled. A competitor seized the window and captured the holiday season. The revenue loss ran into 8 figures. All because a handful of early warning signs never had a chance to become a story. The data existed, it just never learned to scream. The Nova disaster wasn't about negligence. It was about connection. Beth held a fragment of the truth in her inbox. David had the authority to act, but his dashboard never saw her spreadsheet. The signal was there, just buried under incompatible tools. It's a pattern we've all lived through. A faint alarm that no single system was designed to hear. Now imagine a different kind of listener. An agentic AI that doesn't wait for a report. It sips from every stream. Support tickets, Slack threads, test logs, vendor emails. It doesn't just collect data. It chases relationships. When Beth's email mentions a failed integration test, the engine notes it. When the vendor's performance bottleneck surfaces 2 weeks later, it connects the dots. No human had to write a rule. The system simply learned what normal looked like, and it spotted the deviation. This is the shift. Old operations ran on dead models. Yesterday's numbers, printed on a PDF, stale by breakfast. The new fabric stays alive. It's a continuous learning intelligence that breathes with the business. Agentic workflows don't just flag anomalies, they propose what to do next. They route a signal to David with context. This vendor's payment module has 2 test failures in the last month. Here's Beth's original flag. Do you want to pause the launch? It's not a replacement for human judgment. It's a cure for the fragmentation that lets signals die. Instead of a blind spot, you get a pattern that glows. The engine doesn't sleep. It doesn't forget. And it never assumes a spreadsheet and a dashboard are already speaking the same language. But detection alone isn't enough. Knowing a missile is coming doesn't save you if no one pushes the launch button. That's where the real shift happens. Operational intelligence has to move from a passive siren to an active participant. It's the difference between a fire alarm and a sprinkler system. One screams at you to do something. The other just does it. For portfolio governance, that means the system doesn't just flag a vendor risk. It freezes the next milestone payment. It doesn't just note that a critical project is understaffed. It pings the resource manager and pre-populates a requisition form. The intelligence becomes the action. Think about the governance chain inside a large portfolio. A steering committee meets every 2 weeks. That's a 13-day blind spot. A lot can burn down in 13 days. Real-time operational intelligence collapses that gap. When the AI engine detects a pattern that matches a known failure signature, it doesn't draft a memo for the next meeting. It triggers a predefined escalation protocol right then. It sends a direct alert to the executive sponsor's phone, not with a vague warning, but with the specific contract clause that's now in jeopardy and the financial exposure calculated to the dollar. It turns governance from a periodic review into a continuous, living process. This is automated triage at machine speed. The system understands the difference between a minor deviation and an existential threat because it's been trained on your organization's actual risk appetite. A 2% budget overrun on a low-priority project? It logs it and adjusts the forecast. A key architect leaving a mission-critical program? That's a different beast. The system instantly recommends a retention bonus, pulls a short list of internal replacements from HR records, and sets a 30-day countdown clock for the executive team. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't forget. It just watches the intricate machinery of your portfolio and keeps the gears from grinding to a halt. That blind spot? It's where the PMO used to live. For years, we treated the project management office like a documentation vault. Status reports flowed in, they got formatted, they got filed. By the time a steering committee saw the red flags, the fire already had 3 days of burn on it. That's passive reporting. It's looking in the rearview mirror while driving a portfolio at highway speed. Now, think of the same office wired into a live nerve center. AI doesn't wait for a Friday upload. It's watching resource burn rates, vendor delivery patterns, dependency chains, all in real time. The PMO analyst walks in Monday morning not to a pile of emails, but to a screen that's already highlighted a single thread. 2 projects in the same program are drawing from an engineer who's double booked next month. A bottleneck 12 days out. They don't just log it. They own it. By 9:15, she's pulled the resource manager into a quick huddle. The AI's already run a dozen what-if scenarios, reallocating junior talent, delaying a non-critical feature, borrowing a contractor from a sister pod. They pick a path. At 10 o'clock, the portfolio director gets a 2-line summary and a recommended decision. No slide deck, no meeting. The steering committee doesn't need to assemble because the course was corrected before most of them finished their coffee. That's the PMO as an intelligence center. Seeing around corners, not just cleaning up after collisions. Leaders start to feel the shift in their own workflow. The quarterly portfolio review used to be a ritual of regret, apologizing for last quarter's slips. Now it's a forward-looking session where the intel is already hot. The CFO asks, "Where should we double down next month?" The PMO doesn't hesitate. They've got the data, they've got the pattern, they've got the answer. They're no longer the librarians of what happened. They're the strategists shaping what happens next. And the executive team stops treating project governance like a compliance chore. It becomes their competitive radar. So how do you get there without burning the whole thing down? Because you don't need a rip and replace. That's the myth that keeps ops teams paralyzed. The truth is, your company's already humming with signals. Slack threads, Jira tickets, Datadog pings, that spreadsheet finance swears is the only source of truth. The problem isn't a lack of data. It's that the data's all speaking different languages in different rooms. Your first move is to connect what you already have. Native integrations, webhooks, even a simple API pull from your HR system to sync who's actually available. Don't build a monolith, just light up the pathways. Once those systems can at least see each other, the picture starts to shift from static snapshots to something that breathes. At the center of that, you need a shared language. We call it a signal taxonomy. Fancy term, simple idea. It's just a decision tree for what actually matters. Is a missed commit a noise or a signal? Depends. If it's from a critical path repo and the sprint ends tomorrow, that's a high priority anomaly. If it's a side project with a floating deadline, let it whisper. You're defining the difference between an operational squeak and a genuine wheel falling off. Without that taxonomy, everything screams, and your AI just becomes an expensive amplifier for chaos. Get your leads together for a 2-hour workshop. Hash out the top 10 events that actually killed a delivery last year. That's your starting set. You can refine it forever, but you have to start somewhere. Then you deploy the agents. Not to replace people, but to do the watching that humans are terrible at. These small, focused automations can sit on a PagerDuty schedule and notice that a critical deploy window just collided with a marketing freeze. They can nudge the right person before it becomes a multi-team shouting match. It's not a robot PM. It's a heat sensor. And the beauty is, you layer this on piece by piece. One integration this sprint, a single agent next sprint. You evolve toward full visibility without a single big bang go live. The intelligence layer doesn't arrive in a box. You grow it, right on top of the organs your enterprise already has.